Hey gang, Steve Jensen, Dr. J, and guess what it is? Money matters. Over the last 10 weeks, gee whiz, hasn't time flown, we've been asking the guru, a wealth coach of magnitude that goes all around the world and is on Channel 9, Channel 7, Channel 10, helping people with their money matters. And Jackson has really very kindly has spent a significant amount of time sharing his gold. And we help you guys make more sales. But making more sales and spending it on your business is a great idea, but it's what you do with the surplus. Now, you hire staff and you're maybe a staff member. But one of the things we want to talk about today, and one of the things that Jackson's been alluding to over the last 9 weeks, is to get your money working for you, because we believe, and Jackson actually has this wonderful paradigm, that it's your best staff member. And if you look after your staff members, it looks after you. And the same applies with your money. Now, if you go back to number 1, it's about a plan. And number 2 is about all the other things that go with it. And today is the finale. So we've saved the best till last, which is a big wrap up. If you want to look at the other ones, go back into the Money Matters 1, 2 to 9 and hear what we're going to talk about. But today's about how to make money your best friend, really, and makes a staff member that works for you. So thanks, Jackson.
Happy to be here, mate. Looking forward to wrapping it up with a bang.
Now, your paradigm of staff money being a staff member. Let's talk about that for a moment, because really at the end of the day, it doesn't have holidays and it doesn't get sick, does it? But you got to look after it.
100%. So the whole idea of this is about redefining our relationship that we have with money. Let's think about it this way. Do you treat your money the same way that you would treat a staff member? Do you treat with respect? Do you set KPIs and expectations? Do you have regular reviews? And if it's not working for you, you put it on notice, put it through a HR process, and sometimes work it out to be able to make sure that you can get the right team members on your team to achieve your goals. The problem is that most people don't treat their money as if they would treat their team. They treat it with disrespect. They would ultimately potentially get themselves into a lot of trouble if the HR person saw the way that they treated their money. And it's about redefining that relationship to make sure it's a positive one. Because in my experience, most people have negative relationships with their money.
So if you have a negative relationship with a person, it's going to come asunder. And it's quite a profound paradigm shift from a mindset of it's just money, we'll just stick it in the bank. And just like a flower, if you just left it in the cupboard, it would die.
Yeah.
Don't nurture and change. And if the money's not performing for you, you've got to actually, don't just throw it away. You would then nurture it. And I think your paradigm is very, very powerful. And I think it's one of the reasons why many people fail to become wealthy, because they don't treat it with the respect I think you said earlier.
Exactly right. And it all starts with the first thing, is that there's people on different levels of the spectrum in terms of their relationship with money. I'd probably say the majority of people, their money is a silent killer. And it's a silent killer because they aren't willing to talk about their money. When was the last time that you actually sat down with somebody and had a frank and straightforward conversation about how you or they were doing financially?
It's a tough question, isn't it? Really, is some people just say, "Oh, I'm not doing very well," or when you've had a bad time, you try to hide it from the people, and maybe if you're broken up relationship, you don't want to tell everyone because they think you're a failure. And I must say that I've been in that position myself. I've actually had some significant successes, and then when things went bad, I went into a cocoon and kept it a secret and tried to get through it myself. And I can promise you, it doesn't work.
It doesn't. No, it's when things are tough that you need to talk about things more and own the things that aren't going well. Because much like a staff member, if you've got a staff member that's underperforming in your business, that they're costing your business money, they aren't pulling their weight, you can't just sweep that under the carpet and expect that staff member to turn around. It never does. They are only able to turn around if you support them to turn around, that you create a performance management framework, that you seek help and maybe external consultation. You get the right people involved to bring the best out of that individual because, hey, maybe they're going through a tough time. Much like your money, You can make excuses for the issues, but unless you're able to own the issues and then work through them either on your own or with the support of trusted partners, then you're never going to see the end of the tunnel.
We can't be experts in everything, can we? I mean,
No.
I think you're putting it brilliantly. And guys, listen to what Jackson's saying here. It's having a conversation with someone that has a care factor, has no judgment, let go of the ego and say, this is not working. And I believe that's a tough call. But when we show vulnerability, it is actually a strength. And we can't all be great with money. And I've had people tell me, oh, I'm terrible with money. I said, well, how's that working for you? Oh, it's really terrible. So the end of the day, put your hand up for help. And you guys actually do coaching. You don't just do, financial planning or whatever the case would be. You don't do that. You actually say, well, let's either do it with you, do it for you, or look, you do have a program where they can do it on their own. But most people need the help. Would you agree?
Correct. I agree 100%. And here's the thing. You can have the best plan in the world. You can read every single book from every single guru that exists. But unless you sort out your own stuff and your own relationship with money and understand the why behind why you do things, why your situation has resulted in the way that it is, then the reality is that history has a very high likelihood of repeating itself. It was famously said by Winston Churchill that if we fail to learn from history, we're bound to repeat it. And so many people are so focused on the future or so focused on what they've done well that they never take the time to reflect on what they could have done better, or more importantly, what led them to where they are right now.
Would you believe that I've heard this in the last 7 to 8 weeks about 7 or 8 times. And the word comes to mind is called becoming agile, because what works a year ago, 2 years ago, 6 months ago is changing. Now, if you're not on top of it and picking trends, you're going to miss the boat. And that's when the money starts to underperform, and then you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly right. And I think that people need to invest enough time in their money to be effective, but not so much time that they end up doing more harm than good.
So what do you think about the invest and forget? So put it in that, just let it go. It'll look after itself. I'll put it in these bonds. It'll always go up, and just don't have to do anything with it. I'll stick it in these shares. These are blue chip. They'll never go down. It's like let's invest and then forget. Does that work?
Depends on in the context. And I think in some cases, it's important for us to have what we refer to as an investment operating system. We should have an objective framework that allows us to choose and select where we should be allocating our money. So we're not just doing it blindly. But we should not be investing so much time as to think that we are going to redesign a bespoke way of investing our funds each and every time we have money to allocate, because no one has time for that. Because what we often find is that there's people, once again, at both ends of the spectrum. There's people who are lazy with their money and they're leaving opportunity on the table, because what has once worked will not always work. History and results in history are not always an indicator for results in the future.
Well, that's right. It was like with the staff member, what they were doing the last 2 or 3 years, if they're not upgrading their skills or even sharpening their axe, they're going to go backwards. It's exactly.
100%. But on the flip side, you can't micromanage your money, because by micromanaging it, you do more harm than good, much like a staff member. Imagine that you're standing behind your staff member and breathing down their neck for every waking moment that they're in the business. That's not going to work out well for you. They're going to get pretty shitty. They're going to start losing confidence. They're going to get frustrated. And more importantly, you're going to get to a point where you cause more harm than good, because looking out for somebody or looking out for your money is a good thing. But micromanagement, most people don't like to be micromanaged, do they?
Now, the micromanagement of sorts, when it comes to sales, for instance, you've got to measure the numbers. Someone was in a business just the other day, and I said, you've got to measure your KPIs. They said, we don't like to micromanage. I said, you're not managing at all. I think there's a fine line, and I think it is a very difficult one. I know I've struggled with it over the years, is how much autonomy are you going to give your people because you trust them? Or how much management do you have to do if they're underperforming? And sometimes being the nice guy and giving lots of autonomy, you come asunder. And that same applies with your money.
Correct. And this all comes down to setting a goal, because it's very difficult for you to ascertain whether you should manage more or less unless you've got something that you're chasing. And when it comes to your money, we need to set a minimum expectation of what we'd refer to as a risk-adjusted rate of return, of how much risk are you prepared to take and what is the return that you expect to be compensated for as a result of that risk. And if your portfolio is achieving that level of return or above, then we leave it. And if it is less, then we need to ask ourselves why.
That's a good analogy. And again, if the staff member's cracking budgets or giving great service and it's working,
You leave them alone.
Leave it alone, yeah. But if it ain't working, you got to have a conversation, and that's where it comes down to seeing people like yourself. I mean, talking to to Stan and to Sal and yourself and Mo and the rest of the guys. They're experts in their field, and swear that, well, when it doesn't work, put your hand up for help, because it's not going to get better or overnight.
Exactly. And we use a very simple stoplight system. So when it comes to your money, and this applies for in the team as well, is that we have a green, an amber, and a red status. So if your money is green, it means it's growing and thriving. You're hitting your targets, you're on track for your plan. So there's nothing really to do. You keep doing what you're doing, or you double down on what you're doing if you can. Next is amber, where things are a little bit on the rocks. You're falling a little bit short of where you need to be, and you need to make some adjustments to do micro course corrections to get yourself back on track. Or you're red, you're in crisis. These are the areas where you need to be focusing all of your time and attention. You should be tools down, find a solution, get yourself back on track, so then you can make sure that you are on track for your plan.
If you're on amber and on red, from where I sit, I think you'll still need to get advice and be shown what to do, or maybe have someone do it for you. Because if you see, oh, well, I've got to make some adjustments, or I'm in crisis, I find that most people, and again, I can speak for the people I know and myself, we go into crisis mode and we try to fix it, but we sometimes make it worse.
Correct. Yeah. Sometimes we end up doing more damage than good. And much like a staff member, let's say, for example, you've got a staff member in your business and they've done something that's really wrong. Now, you may be breaking rules to just go out and blatantly fire them. You might get yourself into some trouble for unfair dismissal. So you need to go through a due process, an objective process that's based on facts and a system. So you might go and find yourself a HR expert. You might get somebody who can come in, who's an independent third party, who's able to educate you on the rules, tell you the playbook, implement the right strategy, and help you through the system.
Yeah.
And hey, maybe in the future, once you've got that level of expertise, that you can handle that situation if it was to present itself again. But when you're in the thick of it, you're on the coalface, then you might be looking at things through rose-tinted glasses. And you're right, we can make mistakes.
Are you finding that, given the current circumstances now I'm talking about right now, with the Reserve Bank reducing its rates to almost zero or 0.05 or whatever it is, to be able to actually have our money work for us, and using that wonderful process called compounding or compound interest, in the current climate, this is the time where you might be in amber and you might be in red, to say, well, hang on, I think what's worked 6 months ago, given that everything has changed, the returns are very low, what do we need to do? That's when you need advice, isn't that right?
Exactly right. And this is about identifying the opportunity. Let me give you a great example. So we had some clients through the coronavirus situation that had their money heavily invested in shares and property. Now, property was less affected, but the share market took a pretty big punishing at the beginning of the coronavirus situation, and some people panicked. They thought they were in red. They saw the markets fall by about 20%. They saw that there was a recession declared. There was a correction. We were officially in a bear market. And they asked us, well, should we be cashing out? Should we be pulling all of our money out and retreating and waiting for the market to correct? Well, if they were left to their own devices, many people do that. And we've seen them do that through time. They go through what we call the cycle of emotions, that they're not objectively thinking about the facts of the situation. They're driven by fear, which is a very powerful emotion. Now, yes, the market fell by 20%. But what we've seen is that since then, markets have recovered, and in many cases have actually returned to levels higher than what they were before the COVID situation. So if they would have pulled out, they would have not only crystallized their losses, but they would have missed the upside opportunity that's happened since. So from somebody's perspective, a red crisis situation is, from an outsider's perspective, a green opportunity. Let's think about it this way. When's the best time to go shopping? When everything's at full price, or when things are on sale?
They say there's the best time to actually make a move is when there's either an incredibly high upturn or a huge downturn. It's where it's in the between. It's where you just need to sit solid. And this is where you need advice from people, not just to say, do this, we'll do that, to strategize it and have a plan that's not just for now, but also in the future. And that's what you've been doing with me, and that's what we've been doing with most of your people. Is that right?
Exactly right. And this is the thing that it's about defending yourself from yourself, because sometimes when we're caught up in the moment, we can make emotional decisions that are driven by fear and they don't necessarily result in the right decisions. It could be that you look at an investment and you're so caught up in the potential returns of that investment that you discount the risks. And on the flip side, you're in an investment and you see the market's tumbling and you're so fearful of it tumbling more that you feel the pressure to get out. So it's about making sure that we look at the balance and the relationship between risk and return, and we make the right decision around what's going to get you to the goal with the most peace of mind and certainty.
What I'm hearing here, mate, is when you have these emotional conversations with yourself, talk to an expert. Correct. And get it from a third party point of view, but from someone that's done it in the past, because 100%. we've all made mistakes of saying, oh, it's going to be a great return, or we're preaching to the converted, or this is going to be a disaster, where we're talking from our own experience where Correct. It's not profound enough to actually then talk elsewhere. So I think talking to expert, I think expertise is the big word that I'm hearing here.
100%. And we do exactly the same thing, Steve, that when it comes to getting advice for ourselves, when we make these decisions, we seek third-party support. And we spend a huge amount of money. I think that between my business partner, Sam, and I, over the course of this year, we probably would have spent about $100,000 on personal development. Because we know that...
Alone, can we?
No, we can't. And the best investment that you'll ever make is into yourself. Because as a person, you are like a tree. You're either growing and thriving or you're rotting and dying. You got to choose one.
So tell me, what are 3 ways we can have our money work better for us? Just 3 easy ones.
Yep. So the first thing is we need to have a system to follow. When we approach money from a subjective frame, where we're flying by the seat of our pants and we're dealing with it ad hoc, we are always going to lean towards emotion. How does it feel? Does this feel right? Is this the right move? Should I be doing this? It's very subjective. So when we have a system to follow, it is black and white. It is yes or no. It is either as part of the plan and it makes it's actually going to push us forwards, or it isn't. The second thing is make time to review this regularly. When we've got the plan, we need to make sure that we are on track for it, because if we don't, the more we leave that, then the more we might have to course correct. So we can make small micro adjustments to our plan on a monthly or a quarterly basis, which is going to be far more effective to get us back on track than if we only do it once a year or every blue moon. And the third thing is have an external third-party advisor or mentor to help you make what you might see as being objective situations really objective, because they do not have an emotional stake in the outcome. It is very difficult. We're emotional beings. It's very hard to remove your emotions when your own money is involved. So by having that independent third party, somebody who has a vested interest and has the skill set, the expertise to be able to give you the right advice, not Uncle Bill at the barbecue, who's already half a case deep. You want somebody who has experience in getting the outcomes that you want and has a track history of doing so.
So number 1, have a system. And I think if the guys go right back to Money Matters number 1, there's a wonderful plan you put together in there.
Yeah.
Then we have time to review. And I think this is a big rock, having time to review it with someone that knows what they're talking about. You can review, oh, gee whiz, I made $200, but expert might say, well, let's keep a close eye on that. We might need to do something to make it 300.
Correct. And
the last one is get an external expert. Pick the right person. And I'm just going to throw this out just from my point of view. Jackson, you're very bipartisan, I know, but I don't believe just getting a financial advisor, and I've done it in the past, has worked for me. What they usually do is they put a little portfolio together. They give me a report every now and then. They don't explain it. I ask a few questions. They say, oh, just it's okay. And I was just completely blind. And the returns were very low. what I found has been significantly better is actually talking about planning, being agile, and making sure that we are continually having dialogue on a regular basis, because just like what we're talking from the get-go, having the opportunity to treat it as a living, breathing thing, because it does the same activity. So I believe that that external conversation is huge.
Exactly.
Now, to wrap up everything on a big finale, I'd love to find out what is the biggest mistake that people are making with their wealth creation, and how could they turn off that hemorrhage?
Yep, there's 3 mistakes. There's only 3. And working with thousands of clients, there's only ever 3 mistakes. 1, they don't have a plan. 2, they don't have the cash. Or 3, they don't have the consistency to be able to get them on the right path of financial freedom. So the opposite. Financial freedom. What does it mean for you? And what is the plan to get you from where you are to where you want to go? 2, for you to achieve and manufacture financial freedom, what cash do you require or surplus do you need to bridge the gap? And 3, how do you create consistency so you can get off the roller coaster? Because just because you crush it one quarter and you hit all of your targets, you make all of this big bank in terms of your commissions, or you maximize your profit and you sign on all of these clients, if in the next quarter you do your ass and you go back to square one, you're basically just right back where you started. Consistency is key.
Well, my friend, you've always come up with the goods, but gee whiz, the finale was a big bang, just like a grand final. Look, I want to say a great big thank you. I'm eternally grateful for you sharing so much knowledge with everybody. And I must say that the feedback has been outstanding. Everyone said, wow, that's made a big difference. And what I'm going to throw out to everybody is I think it's better for them to have a conversation. We've given the opportunities to do it, but I really believe that they need to have a conversation and to see where they're at, whether they think they're doing well or whether they think they could do better or they're in a bad spot. It's take off the ego hat and say, ask for some help. I never would spruik or actually push for people to do things unless I truly believed that it was they'll get massive value. And Jackson, you and your team are just the top shelf. So I want to say a big thank you. And how can people get hold of you and get some advice and push it to the next level?
Yep, so there's a few ways. Best thing to do, add me on Facebook. We post a lot of content to keep this stuff top of mind, to help you get the consistency that you need, to be able to learn the crafts, get the tools to be able to implement. Second thing, join our free Facebook group, which is 6 and 7 figure CEOs, turning business profit into wealth. You can add, if you go into my Facebook profile, there's a link right at the very top. Third thing is book a call. Book a call with one of our scale specialists or wealth coaches. Let's help you map out a bit of a game plan and ultimately work out what you got to do to get from where you are to where you need to go. So far over the course of the better part of the last decade, we've helped our clients build 1.2 billion in combined wealth. So ultimately, the difference is get that plan, get that cash, get that consistency, and we're going to be on the right track.
Fabulous. Well, I'll put those links in the text and so forth. And again, a great big thank you. Thanks, Jackson.
Happy to help, mate. Chat to you soon.
Guys, for these last 10 weeks, we've been helping you maximize your opportunities to create wealth, not just to make money, to help you become wealthy. We'll help you with your conversion. We'll help you with strategies to make sure your business runs effectively in that sales arena. Conversion is key, and making sure we drive that, let's say, your closing rates, and give you the skill sets and tools to make sure you make more sales. But what I want you to do now is to say, what are we going to do with that surplus? Have a plan. Make sure we put it into action, and make sure you get an expert to help. So take advantage of the links and join Jackson's pages and learn the good stuff. But action is everything. So I'm Dr. J. Thank you for joining us for Money Matters. Review the other 9, and I'm sure you'll get some massive value. Thanks for coming, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.